Arrived to Thailand, and this is the first thing that I see from my hotel view. This is a water tank, and these water tanks can be a very good place for bacteria development to start if not maintained correctly. So that got me thinking, is this the tap water? Is it groundwater? What type of water is actually going in there? And is this the water that's actually arriving to my hotel, to my tap? And what are the consequences? So in this video, I'll be covering all sorts of water sources that you can find here in Thailand, as we all know that we're having a water crisis due to climate change and increased levels of water demand. So this is causing us to have a little less water. While it's true that most of our planet is consistent of water, but most of it is actually in seawater, which is salted and contaminated, or in glaciers and trapped and not able for human consumption. And Thailand is located in South of Asia, which makes it more vulnerable to water scarcity issues. So this makes it like a chess game. So we need to find more sources of water that are actually reliant and can be consumed by humans, filter them, and actually manage to get that in our tap. So let's dive right in and explore all four sources of Thailand's water. Two of them are a little more common, but the other two are actually new technology that I was very happy to find out that Thailand is investing in such new ways of collecting water. So the number one source of water in Thailand is surface water, basically water that could be found anywhere on the surface. That's lakes, rivers, reservoirs, and so on. So the problem with this water is that it's very, very contaminated since it's wild in the open environment. So things you can see around the river, for example, might be trees, aquatic life, animal life, soil, dust, and so on and so forth. And these are only the contaminants that we can actually see. What about the ones that we do not see, like dissolved metals and heavy metals or pharmaceutical chemicals? So this is actually making the water a lot more contaminated. While it's true that this water needs to go to a treatment facility plant where water is being treated and then coming all the way to your home, but that's one thing to consider. So one level of difficulty to obtain that water is easy since it's outside in the environment, but two, difficulty is a little bit difficult to clean it out since there are many, many contaminants that can be found in the water. Water source number two would be groundwater. That's basically water that has seeped into the ground. So any water that was on the surface basically made its way through the soils and rocks down to the aquifers where the water is stored. It's basically like rocks that are combined and the water just stays there. Whenever that water stays there, people just dig a hole and they get that water out, pump it out for consumption. So this is another very common practice that is used in Thailand and actually all over the world. But the problem with this groundwater is that it's not regulated. Whenever you're getting water from your tap, you know that the water municipality has actually gone through a treatment process and that water has met some sort of standards. But when it's groundwater, there are no regulations, so you don't really know what's going in your water, which is why it makes it very, very important for you to get that water tested before you actually decide what type of filter you want to put or even consume it in any form. So the level of difficulty for this, I would give it an orange since it has to be pumped back up, and the level of filtration, I would also give it an orange. Of course, a lot of the things depend on the water test itself. It depends on the rocks and soils that the water has seeped through, because if it has minerals or other things, the water is just going to absorb those. So it really depends on the water that you're getting. Moving on to source number three, the desalinated water. Basically taking seawater, salty water, filtering it and making it tap water. This is a very new, interesting technology that is just saving lives for especially water-stressed areas. Like Thailand has some islands like Koh Phangan or Koh Samui where they don't really have a lot of water available for them and they just have a lot of ocean. UAE is actually leading technology in this, and I covered a full-on episode of how the water is being get in UAE. You can find it here above. I really believe that this type of technology is going to be more and more popular as we're consuming a lot more water than we have, especially with water-stressed areas like Koh Samui or Koh Phangan, where it's like small islands with not access to fresh water. So people have to have some sort of water, right? So these are the technologies that they're going for. But there's a big problem with this. These desalination plants actually require a lot of energy, a lot of money to be able to be ran. So this gives it a level of filtration of extra red and a level of difficulty, I guess orange, but could also go for red. And finally, we get to source number four, which is rainwater harvesting. So simple, yet so genius. Basically, we're getting rain, which is water, right? Why not collect it and keep it and reuse that? Mainly people are using this for household or agricultural uses. So basically, we can think of this as the cleanest source of water because whenever water is being evaporated, that's basically a natural way of distilling water and making it H2O and going back up into the skies. But whenever it's coming back down, if the air is polluted, if there's something dirty around. That is one problem that we need to keep in mind that might have the water in. And number two is the storage tanks. As I mentioned earlier, these storage tanks are actually a big place for bacteria development to start if not maintained properly. These reservoirs for rainwater, basically they need to have a big surface area so that they can collect more water possible. Whenever these are big areas, there are a lot of areas, again, that is out in the environment and a lot of sources of contaminations that can come and just crawl back down into the waters. So for the sake of this video, let's assume that the water is being harvested in a very safe area where there's not a lot of air pollution, and that gives it a level of difficulty of red, because you have to build all this infrastructure to harvest the water. But the level of frustration goes for green because it's basically purest water and no air pollution, so that just leaves a little bit of like debris or animal leftovers, which is easy to actually filter out. So let's go back to our initial question. What is in this water tank? Is it tap water? Is it surface water? Is it groundwater? What type of water is actually in this one? Well, actually, it could be literally anything. It could be a mix of things, and it could be anything. Because now that we know all the sources and we understand that it's scarce, and we don't really necessarily need to clean water to drinking standard to be using that, I don't know, to flush the toilet, which is why actually some people have created a very smart infrastructure of piping where they're using salt water, literal seawater, to flush down their toilets, since they don't really need, drinking water to, flush down their proteins. And this should cover all sorts of water that you can find in Thailand and the problems of them, but that's only the tip of the iceberg, because each contaminant has actually a different problem and affects the body differently. So that will be my next episode about how each contaminant affects your body. So stay tuned and subscribe. Thank you.